All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott from Jeff Teaches Programming. And what I would like to do right now is to update the version 5 console iteration of the BMI app. All right, and make it just like I did with this one here. I made the GUI one work with our ValidateBoth file. I want to do the same thing here. So, got the file up right now. There it is. And I'm just going to start. One of the first things I want to do, in fact, that's the validation file, is I want to come up here, and I've already uncommented it, but just so you see, the using validation lib. All right, I want to be able to use that. Okay. All right, we will attempt to put the generic. Yeah, we already have done that. We will use the validation class library, and in particular the ValidateBoth.cs file, which has been successfully implemented / used in the BMI GUI version 05. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do just to begin with. All right. So I'm going to have to make some changes here. Now the good news is, if you call it that, I guess, is most of these changes that I'm going to make are very similar in nature to the ones that we made for the GUI version. All right. Now, if you look in here, we've got this. I'm still going to use all this stuff. Still going to use this, at least some of it. But what I want to do is I want to start making some changes. All right. So one of the first things we have to do is we have to update the isDataValid function. There's calculate BMI, that shouldn't change. There's calculate BMI status, that shouldn't change, rather. There's the write out all statistics, that shouldn't change. Here's the isDataValid function. Well, we're going to have to change that. And maybe we'll just do that first. Okay? We're going to keep our two flags in here, our flag, I should say, our Boolean success flag, and our error message. Now notice we've got validate the height, validate the weight. All right, so we want to do the same stuff that we were doing before, but basically I took everything out of here. For lack of a better word, right now, this is almost like a stub. In other words, it allows me to go in, but I'm not really doing anything in here. All right, checking my notes that I have here. So we've already added the using validation lib. All right, so in the isDataValid that's in here, what we want to do, we really don't need to, I don't think. I think we can do this, hopefully at least, without even using the tuples like we used before. So we'll see. I'm going to at least try it without the tuples. No, we will use tuples. Forget that. So we're going to validate the height. And we want to validate that there was input, that there was an integer put in, and it's within range. Okay, so let's just start with that. So first we want to validate that something was inputted. Okay, so we'll do that first. So I'm going to say var, and we'll just call it message. And we'll call this, I don't know, we've already got an is success. Let's just call it okay. Okay, so that'll be our tuple. Oops. And that's going to be equal to validation both. So notice it's picking it up. Dot is their input. Okay, so that's a good start. Now it's giving me an error because we haven't put this stuff in yet. And what we want to add is not height and weight here. Let's just put this on a new line because I think it otherwise I'm going to run out of room here. I don't want height string and weight string. I don't want those. All right, I do want height string, but then this is going to be the message, so I don't want weight string. I just want it to say height with a blank space. All right, so there's our validation both is their input. All right, next we want to know that an int was inputted, so let me grab this. And this will now be, instead of message and okay, well, I did this. I used basically three different variables in here. I think we can do this, though, using this message and okay. I don't have to make a var in there anymore. All right, but what I'm going to do after we validate is I'm going to add message to my error message. And well, let's just do this. So the first thing I want to do is I want to say error message plus equal message. Because again, that'll take any error that I had and it'll add it to it. All right. The next thing I want to do, and I want to, again, I don't think I'm stellar at a lot of these explanations, so okay, what I want to do is I want to take every time I want to take the current value of is success, and I want to be able to combine it or measure it against. All right. So measure, not the greatest word, but current value of is success with okay. All right, so I want to take, because okay can change at any time depending on the error. So I'm going to say is success. Now I can say equals is success and it with okay. I can do that. That'll work. There's no error there. But there's a shortcut to doing that, and that is ampersand equal okay. Notice again, no error. And we're going to end up doing this every time through here. So we're going to do this, for lack of better words, basically 6 times. All right. Could we take that and put it into its own routine? Probably. Not the way I did it, but probably we could. All right, so the second one, that there was an int inputted. So this is int 32. All right. And again, we want the height string and height. And then afterwards, we again want to do the same thing here. Because again, remember, this can change at any time. All right. And then finally, we want to do it again. But this is going to be a little different because this last one is the range check. All right, again, don't worry about that. I got to get rid of the var. All right, and that here is within range. Now I'm going to get an error because remember, this is expecting 4 different parameters. All right, so the first 2 are here and they're fine. Height string and height, but I have to add to that min height. Oops, try that again, see if I can spell. Min height and max height. Notice my errors are going away. And after we do that, we again want to do the same checks we just made here. All right, so now we've checked everything for the height, and we want to do virtually the same type of thing down here that we just did. Let's change that to a height rather than something. Okay, really something might be better, I don't know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of this right here. I'm going to copy it down to here. And I have to change these, of course. All these vars can go away. But now we're doing the weight. So this is going to be weight string and weight. Okay? So there's nothing else I have to worry about doing there. All right. So the next thing we have to check again is that an int was inputted. And then finally, we'll go back and do the within range again. Again, every time I've got to go in here, and you could make a case and say, I shouldn't be doing all this copying and pasting. I wouldn't disagree with you. So this is weight string and weight. All right. And then again, we're going to have to do the range check. Okay, so we've already got that in here. The is within range. So let's bring that down to here. I don't know what I did there, but whatever it was probably wasn't very good. Should go right there. Paste it in. There we go. So again, no, we have to validate that the weight is within range, which is 1 to 777. So again, that's weight string, weight, min weight, and max weight. All right. And that's most, not everything, but that's much of the stuff that we had to do in there. All right. Now, we're working with tuples, but we can keep this the way it is in here right now, which is as. Let's return a Boolean. Oops, a Boolean here, like we're doing. All right, so we've now validated everything. But before we return is success, all right, what we want to do is we want to say if it is not success. So in other words, if there was an error, or errors, display it or them on screen. That's it. All right, so if that's the case, we're going to come in here and we're going to say write line the following error or errors were found. Let's put this, we'll go on a new line here. Yeah, it's a write line, so it's automatically going to go to a new line anyway. So let's do another write line here. And we'll do error message, which has got our error message, plus, let's put another \n at the end. And now we can return as success. So we've got all that done. That's good. So what we want to do in here, we added the using validation live, but we updated now the is valid implementation. The stub, so to speak, that we had in there has been replaced with logic that uses our class, our validation both that we have in there. All right, so as far as I can tell, that is done. Just trying to check and see if I missed anything, and I don't think I have. So we have to come back now and look at our is the data, well, that is our is the data valid is what we just did. All right, but we are going to have to go in here, and again, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes that I have scribbled here, and I can't even read my own writing. So let me pause for a second so I can try to figure out what I'd said. Well, I lost a piece of my notes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this and try to run it and see how close I am or am not right now. Let's make sure this is our current project. So again, I'm going to right mouse click on this and choose set as startup project. And let's run it and see if I get errors or not errors. All right. So please enter a height that's within range. I'm going to leave that blank, and a weight, I'm going to leave that blank. All right, notice height cannot be empty. Height must be a valid integer. All right, and I'm actually showing them twice there. I guess I don't even need that second one where I say the following errors were found. I'm just being repetitious there. All right, so that appears to work. So on the bottom here where I added this, let's just comment out this line here. And when I say the following errors were found, let's see. Actually, I'm doing the same thing right here. So if error message is not equal, is success is false. I don't think I even need this. I can grab that following errors was or were found. Then I can write that mirror message out. All right, and I don't think I need this. I'm going to just comment it out because I don't think I need it. So I've already set is success to false. So let's try that. So file, save all. And let's see, write error message. So when we're adding the stuff to error message, what I think I'm going to do, just to try to make it look a little nicer, all right, is I'm going to put these together, but then when I get to the weight ones, all right, I'm going to make sure when we go to weight, before I do that, or we can do it right at the end of our height, it doesn't matter. Let's see, validation both is int. There's the range. So in the end of this, I'm going to add plus \n weight errors found \n. I don't know if this is going to end up looking better or worse, but we can always remove it if we want to. Now, if I do put that up here, error message plus equals, let's put the same thing in there. Don't worry, we'll fix it right now. But that'll be height errors found plus MSG. There we go. Hopefully it'll make it a little easier to read. So let's look at it so you can see exactly what I just did here. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to hit enter. So there's the height errors that were found. There's the weight errors that were found. The problem is I think it's going to, well, no, it shouldn't print out anything. So if we run it again and we put in a valid height but an invalid weight, the following errors were found. Height errors found, there are none, and weight errors found. Weight must be a valid integer. You know, again, if you don't like really the way I wrote that, I understand. You could go back and rewrite it any way you wanted. You could remove what I put in there. You know, whatever you think is the best to do. Okay. So let's do this. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do it like we had it. I'm just going to say message here. And then down here, instead of saying weight errors found, I'm going to come in and I'm going to add a \n here. Like that. You know, so much of programming in very many ways is just tweaking and playing around with stuff. So enter, enter. Okay, so the height, there's the weight. So before I've got my first error there. Okay, so let's see. I could add it to each one of these. So in other words, for each one of these, I can come in here and say, starting with, so is their height, that a height was inputted, I can say \n plus message. And I can do that for all of them. Again, I'm tweaking right now and I'm just playing around with it. Okay, got that one. Okay, so hopefully that fixed it. And again, I don't think I need this anymore, so I am going to remove it. All right. So I'm going to run it with a few different scenarios here. I'm going to put nothing in and nothing in. The following errors were found. Height cannot be empty, etc., etc., and then wait. Okay, so that looks good. Where it says the following errors were found, right there, I'm also going to add a \n right there. Again, I want you to be able to see every time I do this exactly what changed. It's reads a little better. All right, so there's that one. Let's run it again, and let's put something in there, but we'll put in hello, and we'll make that valid. Height must be a valid integer. That's good. Let's run it again, and let's put in something out of range, and we'll leave that blank. So height must be between 12 and 96. Weight cannot be empty. Weight must be a valid integer. That looks good. Now, one thing we could do here is where I'm running main. We've got our main program right there. We've got that try catch. Okay, I could put this whole thing, this is now version 5 too, not version 4, but I could put a while one or something like that in there, and I could put this into a loop. Okay, so we could just keep running this over and over and over again. I think that should work. Let's try that. We'll put in here while one. Now I'm going to have to manually break out of it, and that's what this means. Okay, let's grab all the stuff that's in here. There. Now, it looks like it didn't like the while one. Okay, I can say while one equal 1, which is always true. Okay, and let's come in, and every time we do this, let's do a clear. So we should be running with a fresh screen every time. I might need a readline. This might just go away. The clear might just make everything go away, but that's okay. So let's run it. 72 and 111. Yeah, I need a readline down at the bottom. So readline. How about we'll put a right line here. A right says hit any key to run program again. Okay. To run the program again. How's that? Okay, so I'm just going to hit enter and hit enter. Okay, hit any key to run the program again. And there we go. So I think what I've done in here, and I'm going to go over it again kind of quickly with you. Again, we have to manually get out of that, but we could put that in, do that in different ways. We could add a flag in there to continue the program or whatever. I just did it simply. So what we're doing in here again, we're saying we're putting it into a loop, we're putting it into a try catch, telling you to enter a height and enter a weight. Then we're checking, I'm going to check the validity of both the height must be present, must be an integer, and must be between 12 and 96. All right. and the weight must be present, must be an integer, and must be between 1 and 777. So we check the validity. If both height and weight were validated, parse the height string to height, parse the weight string to weight. Okay, and then call the function to calculate the BMI, call the function to calculate the status, and write that out. Okay. We got a read line here, but here we've got, okay, hit any key, so if we run into an error, that should never really be hit this, but we'll see. Guess it's possible. All right, so hit any key to run the program again. This is just the BMI formula. So using the what's called the imperial formula of BMI equals 703 times weight divided by height squared. Again, we could change this to math.pow height, comma 2, and it doesn't really matter. So we've got that, and then we return that. Okay, technically we don't even need this. Is harder than it has to be. We can just return this. All right, now the problem that we're going to have if we return it like this is that's an int, and that's an int. So let's put in here 703.0 to make that a double. All right, our status has not changed at all. Our rate statistics hasn't changed at all. I went over these, but let's look at them again. We still have our is success flag, which we set initially to true. We have our error message, which is initially set to the empty string because there's no error. All right, we create a tuple that's going to hold whatever the message might be and the status. So if there is a message, OK will be false. If there's no message, OK will be true. So we validate the is there input using our what's in the validation both. If there was an error, we had a blank line and the actual message, and then we measured the current value. All right. When you AND this, if they're both true, they stay true. If one is true and one is false, it'll become false. If they're both false, it'll stay false. Then we do the same thing, but we check if from the validation both is it an int. Again, if we get an error message, we add it, and we measure the current value of that, our is success with OK. Then we finally do the same thing with the is within range. Again, these are all from the validation both. Then we do the same thing with the weight. So let's double check and make sure weight. As far as I can tell now, everything is working. All right, when I come back, I think it's time to move on. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to go back to the console version we have of the payroll application, take a quick look at that, and then talk about how we can start to use some of the stuff from the validation both in that program. So I'll be back with that. Let's do a save all here and close this. Close this. Thanks for watching. I'll be back later.